stream is cleared for takeoff.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Happy January in 2024, of course. Welcome to our first developer stream of 2024. We are very happy to be here today. Got our main panel here. Jorg, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Excellent.
Excellent. We have Sebastian Wloch, Asobo CEO and co-founder. Hey, Sebastian, how are you? Thank you for
I'm great.
joining. And of course, we have Martial Bossard, executive producer and also co-founder of Asobo Studio. Thank you for joining us. Just wanted to make that known. My name is Jayne. I am the senior community manager of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we have a great presentation for you here today. Thank you for joining. There are a couple housekeeping I want to go over about the format before we delve into this presentation. In the past we've done Q&A sections. This time, a lot of the Q&A we wanted to delve into a little bit with screenshots and explanations. So it's kind of one big Q&A, but there is a section towards the end where we have a slide that says live questions. Our moderators and other community managers will be looking at some of your questions throughout the presentation, and we'll be answering some of those towards the end. So I would say save your questions towards the end, but if you do ask it, we'll see if we can capture it throughout the presentation and answer it later. But without further ado, let's go ahead and delve into our presentation. Jorg.
Hi, everyone. Feels a little bit silly to say, but Happy New Year. First time we've met this year. I have good news. Now that the holiday season is behind us, I am really happy to report that flight simulating was soaring over the last 2 months. We saw the highest monthly active user number in over a year, and we saw the second highest returning user number ever. So in the 42 months since we launched, the only time that was higher was actually after we launched Top Gun. So the great sign is here that more and more simmers are making Microsoft Flight Simulator their home. So thank you for that, and I'm really delighted. The team is energized by this. Looking back, so it's been 2 months since we met. We met November the 26th. We launched City Update 5 on 12/18. So that was like Brussels, Kovice, Cadiz, The Hague, and Zagreb. And it's been very popular. The number of downloads is great, and we are so happy about that we actually decided to add a fourth in 2024. So we had 3 city update plans. Now we're adding a fourth. These city updates are made. I would say a lot of the work is on the Microsoft side. Bing does a bunch of work. Vexcel does a bunch of work. Gaia does work, and other external teams. And I would just want to set some information. Like the city updates will focus on North America and Europe because we get a ton of cities. Basically, the Bing guys have ongoing deals there that give us a bunch of cities for free. So city updates and will always be North America and Europe, just to say that. Then we also on the same day launched the Cessna T207A. Right before the break, in the famous Flyer series, this was for Coronado, and it was really great to see all the positive feedback. The plane was actually the most successful downloaded plane from the marketplace in December, and you will see further collaborations between Microsoft and Coronado in the future. Then after that, just yesterday, we launched World Update 16 Caribbean. It was a really big effort. Gaia did a lot of work, Bing did a lot of work, various editing teams. We had 104 POIs, 7 airports, and I wanted to show something because last time I talked to you about a new way to do shallow water, and our experiments were, I would say, semi-successful, and you can see that in the update. So this is Caribbean. The Upper Antilles, the Higher Antilles are not so good, basically, and I'll explain that, and the Lower Antilles were good. So I have some pictures of the areas that are good. So here you can see Aruba, and basically, so Asobo made a new editor, which is really great, and it's basically called the Water Blur editor, and it allows us to clean up areas that in the Bing maps have clouds or have cloud coverage, and to bring the shallow waters out, essentially. You can see here the results. Left is before, right is after. Keep going, Jayne. There's a couple of other ones. Here's British Virgin Islands. Was really bad. Now it's actually pretty damn good. Here's Guadeloupe, and I think I have one more maybe in Puerto Rico. So it works. So in general, it works. The thing that we try to do with there are some in the specifics. There's a vertical break between the high view of or the high outlook for over an island, and when you get lower, it breaks into smaller screenshots. We haven't quite cracked that one yet, but there's some ideas of how we even go after this. So right now I would give it like a 50-50. And I know I saw a thread somewhere where people said, hey, it's good here and not so good there. We know. We are working on it, and I will keep you updated on how these experiments are going in the future. Okay. And then we just yesterday again launched the Bell 47J. Sergio was all mad at me because I didn't tell him before. But hey, we finally did a rotorcraft. Sergio, I hope you like it. So this one is a local legend, was created by Builds. And just to tell you the story, why exactly are we doing a Bell helicopter in the Caribbean? Well, because when I researched the Caribbean about a year ago, it made perfect sense. Early days of aviation, there weren't a ton of airports, and the airports that were there were not super great. So people took water planes, and I heard the feedback loud and clear. You're like, hey, y'all did enough flying boats, like we have the Grumman Goose and the S-55 and the Latico Air and the Spruce Goose, etc. So then I looked for something else, and I ended up with James Bond. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Thunderball, but it plays in the Caribbean, and James Bond flies around in a 47J. So that's why we took it. And I think it fits. It gets you everywhere. You can land anywhere in the shallow waters, and it's cool. Okay. And then here's our roadmap. So we're obviously just at the beginning. We updated basically 2 things so far, just yesterday. And then what I didn't put here is the plane developers did a bunch of updates. Oliver in particular did an update to the Doge, the DoX, the Junkers F-13, the Junkers 52. Builds updated the Mitsubishi Mu-2, and then Hans made a massive update to the ATR that I know a lot of you have been waiting for, and I hope you enjoy it. So that's what happened just the last 2 months. And the roadmap is this year pretty damn full, as you can see. 3 more world updates, 4 more city updates, 6 local legends, 4 famous flyers, 2 sim updates, Dune, and then also a surprise. And then obviously also later in the year we'll launch Flight Sim 2024. All right. Yeah, Dune is coming soon. I tried to get permission to tell you what date, and I was not allowed to say anything here, but it's soon. I mean, you can figure it out. The movie is coming out in, about a month.
All right, we're already getting lots of questions, so let's go ahead and dive into our first Q&A session. We do have a lot that people have submitted through our portal a few weeks ago. So we're going to cover some miscellaneous questions as well as some AI questions we did receive. So the first question we have is, will there be any further development to the AI tools used in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 to process and render Bing satellite imagery and generate airports?
I can say something. I mean, yes, we're always improving tools, and we're also improving and researching on better AI. So some of this stuff I think we will probably communicate about later this year about some of the AI improvements. So I mean, today we're not going to dive too much into it, but yes, we're continuing to rely on AI also on tools to improve the quality of the world.
Yep.
I would say there's obviously the Asobo in-engine side. There's also what I think of more as the offline side. The Bing team is putting quite a bit of work into specifically the Tin Cities, and you'll see that manifest itself inside Flight Sim probably in a few months. They added normals, for example, to cities, to the Tin Cities, and there's some other improvements that they're making. And we'll get it. There was a question later, so we'll get to that a little bit. So it's sort of like, yes, some is probably the right answer.
Awesome, thank you. And our next question is Asobo and Microsoft exploring AI to interpret aviation information such as aviation regulations, flight training manuals, and NOTAMs to apply it towards things such as new ATC engine, pilot procedure evaluation, or dynamic scenery generation, temporarily closed runways, taxiways, inoperable nav aids, temporary obstacles, etc.
So maybe I can
we saw that question. We were all like,
Yeah.
Wow, those are all good ideas.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, guys, if you want to say something.
Well, we've got a lot of R&D on this product, and obviously we're trying to explore all the solutions and the new technology that can be used for flight sim. We've got some good leads on some of these areas, not all. For instance, when you're talking about having AI to interpret aviation information, it's pretty straightforward. It's very the rules are pretty stiff, so it's hard to put an AI on that. But when it's up to communications, voices, for instance, we are digging into plenty of new technologies to improve the product in the future.
Mhm. Great. And in the future, is there a prospect in using AI to remove baked-in shadows from photogrammetry and satellite imagery?
That's actually work that's going on at Bing right now. So they have a machine learning team that is exactly on that topic.
That is awesome. No. Continuing in our miscellaneous category, AMD Fluid Motion frames have been available in preview drivers for several weeks now, and FSR3 is available now in many games. Reports from users are very positive. Can we be assured that this new technology will be made available within Microsoft Flight Simulator soon? And if so, when might it be ready?
So yes, obviously we have a strong relationship with EMD. We want to bring this technology into flight sim. I will not commit tonight on a date. I'm very sorry, but it's something we want to bring in our engine.
Yeah. Thanks, Martial. And can you provide details on how NavBlue data is used in the sim and what exactly is updated each AirX cycle?
Okay, so NavBlue is doing a drop of data every 28 days. And so we are collecting this data. We've got a piece of code that ingests the data, and we're using most of them, like navigation points, airspaces, communications data, airport data, airport navigation points. So most of them are ingested in put in our database. And how we are distributing them, in the past, we used to have this embedded into the software. So it was updated every time we did a new executable. So it's not anymore. We've decided to have a new procedure. So now it's a package which is aside the core of the system. So we can update this package almost as often as we want, as we can. So for most of it, it comes with new updates, like board updates. Every time we are doing a title updates, we are putting the new navigation data. But starting from now, we could update those data every time it's ready.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. There are a couple live questions I'm going to bring up now before we move on to the next slide. Since we did just talk about water masking Jorg, we have some questions in here. So one of them is, many simmers have reported a bug since the release of World Update 16 yesterday, where water masks aren't displaying at all, such as Nassau, Bahamas. Is there a fixed plan for this issue? Are you looking into it?
We are looking into it. So basically, specifically, when you looked at that picture I showed earlier, specifically the Bahamas were really bad, and it's because the water is so flat over such a large area. So basically, you had really nasty tiling, and the water mask. So we did a bunch of work, got the water mask done, and then it was removed. And I think we removed too much, so we need to go back in. But we'll update it.
Okay.
I think it's server side, so I think it'll be fine. It's just a few more days.
Okay. Thanks, Jorg. All right. Moving on to our next question. Downloads from Marketplace and updates continue to be slow, with frequent drops in speed and occasional re-download of files in the middle. Why is that, and what can we expect for the near future?
So that's a tricky question. We are using a system called CDN, and these CDNs are some servers which are placed all over the world to replicate and to cache all the data we are using. And those CDN are delivered by PlayFab. And we're working with them because we have some issues on the way the files are put into the cache. And we have encountered some situations. So it's hard to reproduce, it's hard to set up. We don't have a direct input on that, but I can tell you that the
the providers we are having on that, they're working on it. So it has been clearly identified. It's not 100%. You can encounter some drought from time to times, and it's a situation we don't like, but we're working on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right. The Asobo Blender exporter has had a major update in January 2023 and 2 major updates in June and September. The exporter is in a position where more developers are using it because of this good work. There have been a number of bug reports and a number of enhancement requests made. The current exporter is only compatible with Blender version 3.3. That version will end of life in September 2024. A lot of Blender users wish to take advantage of the new features and bug fixes in the latest version and the recent major release. Will the exporter be updated soon? Will the exporter keep up with the Blender LTS releases?
So that's a pretty long question, and it will be a pretty short answer. The answer is yes. We are going to support every version of Blender LTS. So the 4.0 doesn't have a LTS so far, but we are going to work on the 3.6 during the next cycle. Well, we've got a cycle of 6 weeks for dev, and it's going to be done during this next cycle that starts next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, Jasmine, she's in charge of that. She will work on that during this cycle.
Fantastic. Thanks, Martial. All right, we also got tons of questions regarding Sim Update 15, so we're just gonna start by talking about it. Martial, can you give us some details just about the update in general?
Oh, yes. So we've got plenty of new things and improvement here. So people are asking if we have let Flight Sim 2020 aside while we're doing Flight Sim 24.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, that's not the case. So we will answer a little bit more in details on all the improvements and the new things we want to bring for Sim Update 15 during the next slides.
New features. What?
New features.
New features and improvements. Yes. So we do have a guest that we would love to introduce to everyone. We have Dominic Galus with us today from Working Title. You may welcome Dom. You may, of course, everyone in chat has met Matt, and now you can meet someone else from Working Title who does a lot on the team. So Matt, Dominic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Sorry, before we dive into this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Dominic. I'm one of the co-founders and lead developers at Working Title, and yeah, we thought we're gonna mix it up a little bit today and send someone else.
Yeah. We're very glad to have you. Anyway, Dominic will be answering some questions throughout this presentation, so we'll learn a lot more about what Working Title's been doing. All right, improvements on Sim Update 15. We have an air traffic question, which is, in the bug updates on the dev blog 4th of January, it mentions that AI behavior both on the ground and in the air will be fixed in Sim Update 15. Can you comment on what exactly in regards to AI will be fixed in the upcoming Sim Update 15?
Okay, so I would say that we've got 2 layers of improvement. The very first one is how we ingest the data. So you know that in the past we had a pretty strong filtering systems because we were only using planes that have navigations embedded into the data, so we would know where it was from and where it was going, and it was a bit too aggressive, so we changed that. So we've improved significantly the amount of planes that we're displaying now, and we want to go a little bit deeper into that direction. So we have removed plenty of these former filters now, and we are doing a new system, and the system will embed also a new AI system. So the plane which goes from an airport, which leaves an airport or lands to an airport, will be driven by an AI. And this AI will try as much as possible to be integrated into the ATC and the traffic of this airport. So this will be completely redone and recreated for Sim Update 15. But on top of that, we've got another layer, and I will let Dominique talk about that because he's doing that. This is based on his ID.
Yeah, so I guess when we have better data, we want to use it to like improve the immersion of AI traffic. And so there's many people that have a lot of like livery packs and models for AI aircraft installed. And right now it's kind of random on which airplanes and liveries you see, like which airlines, because currently it tries to match the exact type of the plane and the airline. And there are so many variations of airplanes, so it's a little bit hard to do that. So we are working on improvements, so it will try to do a broader matching. So if it can't get the exact type, it will try a plane of similar type, and then it will try to match the airline. And then there will be another layer that when the airline cannot be, if you don't have a livery for that airline installed, we will try to look at airlines that generally serve the region or that airport. So for example, when you're in New Zealand, you don't spawn a plane with a Swiss Air livery because that's kind of breaking the immersion. So yeah, together with Asobo, we are working on that, and we hope we get something good for SU15.
That is awesome.
And
Thank
I
you,
saw
Jayne.
a comment. I just want to say somebody was talking about AIG,
Mhm.
and I saw Kai actually say something. So just know that we are in fact working with Kai.
Fantastic news. That's great. And Seb, I believe you have an update on ATC.
Yeah, so end of last year and with Simulated 14, we've started to look into ATC issues. We fixed a few with Simulated 14, and Simulated 15, we looked into the whole ATC voiceover issues. So we have a fix right now scheduled for Simulated 15 that's being tested in QA right now. So far, it's looking good. And it's going to go into the flighting, and it fixes several issues with the AI voice, the ATC voiceover.
Yeah. Very exciting. I know that's a very high up on there. A question I saw earlier is, do we know when flighting or beta testing will begin for Sim Update 15, roughly?
It's pretty soon. Like, so if somebody asked for the date, and I realized I haven't done a development roadmap in a while. So Sim Update 15, we're targeting March 12th.
Mhm.
And flighting will start, I think, in the next few weeks. I don't have the exact date,
Mhm.
but it's soon.
Yeah. On AI, we have a question here. Is model matching possible in multiplayer since you're working on these types of improvements?
Me personally, I didn't exactly look into that yet, but while we're working, so we focus on the live traffic, but I think the logic that does the model matching is kind of similar. So we will look into that too. That's a good point.
I mean, from the on the sim side, we don't have authentic models, right? Because of we have to license everything, so every company needs to say yes. We are working on this for the future, but on Flight Sim 2020, I'm not sure. But there's obviously third-party things that could work. So maybe Dominic finds a solution there.
Awesome. And our next question is, I've seen chat a lot, when will the NI Builds A320 Neo come out?
Oh, it's on me. Yeah. So as you know, we pulled the Neo out of the SU14 because of performance issues, and we had a lot of discussions with the IndyBuilds team that is working on the plane, and they are making progress. It's tight, I would say. So it's obviously being tested, yada yada yada. The roadmap is such that I'm not 100% sure it's going to make SU15, but we're sure as hell are trying, and the team I think is doing good work. So it's sort of a touch and go. It'll not be in the first flighting for sure. Maybe it's in time for the second round of flighting. But just know that the team is dedicated and everybody knows. I mean, it's great to see how much people are looking forward to the plane. Right? And by the way, there's another slide. Just couldn't resist. I actually want to show the flight deck too. But they're on it. And IndyBuild is a great team, so I have no doubt this will happen. It's just really just a question of when.
Yep. Okay, I just saw this question live in chat too. Can you tell us anything about the performance loss which appeared in Sim Update 14? There's feedback thread in the the forums about this issue, potential issue?
I can talk some about it. Yes, in a way that we have not seen exactly the same everywhere, and it seemed to be pretty random. At the same time, we are continuing to work on performance improvements, and Sim Update 15 will bring a few quite good improvements and optimizations. So one big improvement that is coming, which I will talk later about, is something about memory. And we suspect this to be one of the cause, or maybe the potential cause of performance loss, because it's not like when we look at the statistics. So actually, this time more people have lost performance than people which have gained performance. But some people have gained performance, and some people didn't have a change, which makes it be a little bit random. And the fix we're bringing to Sim Update 15 could be a fix for random performance changes. I will explain more about this later.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Seb. And it's been well documented in the forums that there's a new bug since Sim Update 14 with frame generation. The screen becomes jittery and stuttery. The temporary solve is to go into general settings and turn FG off, then back on, but it doesn't always work. Have you identified the bug, and will it be fixed soon?
So I can also talk about this. So we very recently learned about this, and we this unfortunately we're still investigating. If we find an easy fix, we may have time to bring it into Sim Update 15, but this is something we're just starting to look at.
Yep. On that note, talk a little bit about performance and memory allocation.
Yeah, a quick dive into this. So so this is actually one of the improvements that we made in during the development of 24, and that basically we're bringing back the technology into 2020. Basically, what we found out is that our memory allocation strategy was causing issues in some situations. Basically, whenever the memory got very filled up with stuff. So it can be, usually it will happen when the flights are very long. In 2020, when flights are very long, or when you have a lot of stuff going on, or when you are having a lot of detail, like let's say you're flying Ultra and your PC does not have a lot of RAM, available RAM. For example, let's say you're running other applications at the same time, and Windows is fighting for memory, and so it's moving some stuff to the hard drive or to the swap file, virtual drive memory. Basically, and it's pretty random. Sometimes you can have a situation where it happens, and then the next time you launch the sim, it doesn't. And what we found by trying to get down to the root of this is that in some situations, the memory allocation strategy was not very good. Basically, we have the choice of all types of memory that we can use. And in some situations, we were using a memory system that was way less efficient than we thought. It basically grows, the inefficiency grows like exponentially. When you double the load, it's gonna be 10 times slower, and if you double again, it's gonna be 100 times slower. And we found slowdowns for one memory allocations, which could become 20,000 times slower. Basically, so slow that one allocation alone would generate a giant stutter. And so basically, this whole issue was fixed during the development of 24, where we have a completely different memory allocation strategy. And so we brought this back into 2020, and it's going to be in Sim Update 15. So I have a screenshot here where even when there's not much going on in memory, and so this is A320 on the tarmac at CDG, it deliberately chose a configuration which is a bit slower. There's a 2 FPS gain. But let's say if you are, the caching system for when you spin your head around, if you move this out of Ultra, it's going to regenerate terrain when you turn your head. This is something which uses a lot of, it's very heavy on memory allocation and deallocation, and this gets dramatically faster. If there's a lot of traffic, planes loading in and out, if you are flying close to the ground, there's a whole bunch of situations. And I would suspect a long flight and you arrive on final, and some people had stutters, it's very likely to be this issue. And so this here, basically the slowest allocation we got with the previous strategy was so big that it would generate a stutter by itself. And now it's never slower than a few microseconds. So it's basically at least 100 to 200 times faster.
Wow.
And so this is coming, Simulate 15 in the flighting. We haven't seen any negative side effects, so I think it's a good news. Some people may, I mean, if you were already at 50 frames per second and had no stutters or slowdown, I would not say it's going to make the sim faster. But if you were having slowdowns or stutters or all these issues, I think this is going to be a lot better. And even if it's not working for everyone, we are always anyway continuing to investigate performance. And every time we find something new, we bring it to the sim anyway.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic news. Thanks, Seb. All right, let's talk about glass cockpit performance improvements.
Right, so I'm gonna cover an area that's a little bit closer to what Working Title is doing every day. So we build instruments, and there's a piece of software in the running in the simulator, which is called Coherent GT. And it's basically like a browser that runs in-game, but instead of rendering to a window like on your desktop, it renders on a texture, which then will be on the display in the plane. And yeah, since we're building more and more, and also other people building more and more complex instruments and systems for planes, like the demand on that system has drastically increased. And so we are always looking into ways on basically improving that system. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So I just want to give some background real quick. So when the simulator launched these instruments, there's basically a loop and that asks the instrument every time, please update yourself. So then it pulls new data from the simulator and does some processing, and then it moves the elements around, right? Like on your PFD or the HSI where it has the needles moving and things like that. And that also always allocates memory and all these things, which when you do that every frame, like 60 times a second, that can cause a lot of issues. So especially Asobo did for Sim Update 5 many improvements to that system. And one of those was to make the instruments update less because it's not really needed. And therefore you create less of those like memory allocations, and you only calculate things when you really need to do it and things like that. And also the instruments have been optimized to only do the work they really should be doing. So you can see in the second graph, I mean, it's heavily simplified, but basically it got to a point where it didn't slow down the sim or didn't limit your frame rate. But yeah, now as we did new instruments like the 787-10, the 747, which has 17 instruments that try to do things all the time, that even wasn't enough. So we looked into, and there were reports on the forums, especially for Xbox, that in a bad case, like performance with these planes can be quite bad. So we looked into what we can do again to optimize that. And one thing we noticed is since we don't update the instruments on every frame anymore, there's like time where at least nothing on those instruments is happening. There's other things happening, but there's some time we can fill on the other frames that are otherwise empty. So yeah, we implemented an improvement that will basically distribute the updates of the instruments. For example, if you have 17 instruments on the 747, then it distributes those along 3 or 4 frames. Yeah, so and when all that is done, so we did some testing. For example, this is an example on PC with the 747. And you can see before the optimizations, like the bars at the top, like the main thread, render thread, and the manipulators, they are all pretty green. They run well because they're so well optimized. But then you can see the the yellow bar, the coherent GTUI thread, and basically when it's yellow or red, it's limiting your frame rate. So we do more than we should be doing. And now you can see after the optimizations, the coherent thread is not limiting your frame rate anymore. So the sim can, I guess, run as fast as it possibly can. Right, and this is the same for Xbox. And for Xbox, it's not really about increasing the frame rate itself, but to like make the experience smoother. So you can see in the upper diagram, there's all these red lines and everything seems pretty erratic. And that is what you can perceive as stutters or hitches when you move around the camera and stuff. And so you can see after the optimizations and distributing those frame updates, like everything is pretty flat, and that should lead to a smoother experience that you should be able to really feel. And yeah.
Fantastic. Yep. Everyone in chat seems very excited about this. They said it's like a free GPU update. So thank you to Working Title for working on these optimizations for PC and Xbox. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for going over it in detail as well.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we're going to talk about snow coverage, which was a question asked a lot in our forum. So, Seb, take it away.
Yeah, hello. So, well, we're taking advantage of winter, right? So there's snow everywhere. So it's first of all, people see issues, and it's easy for us to do fixes and check if they're working. So in Sim Update 14, there was a first big bug fix on snow coverage with basically a unit change issue that was resolved in the source data, which means that we now display accurately the snow depths that we are given by the data provider. And people have still, obviously, now that it's working better, and it's winter, people have seen further issues. And so I have a few issues, a few pictures basically to show on what are the next steps here. On this slide, you can see basically what I checked out on the Meteo Blue website, which is the snow coverage of some space, some area in Switzerland, which is causing issues. And on the slide thereafter, you can see Sim Update 14. So you can see that if you go back and forth maybe 1 or 2 times so that people can see the difference. No, backwards, sorry. Yeah, so you can see that in the best data that Meteo Blue have, there's really only snow on the mountains, yet we have snow everywhere. And basically what's happening is that the data that we currently have is not as detailed, right? We have more like imagine like an average for the local area. So that's something where we're going to discuss with Meteo Blue in a way to find to get basically better data into the sim. And the second issue is you can see the lakes are frozen in the sim where they probably shouldn't. The reason for that is very simple, is when we started implementing snow into the sim, we didn't have frozen lakes or water at all, and it looked pretty silly in many areas where it's like full of snow in northern Canada or whatever, and then you had all these lakes and rivers all over the place. So we said, okay, at some point we need to find a way to freeze water. But the data we had for that, in order to achieve this, the only thing we have is really snow coverage right now. I mean, we checked a little bit on data that is available there. There is some icing coverage, but it's only oceans, and if you look at the coastlines, it's very inaccurate. It's kind of sometimes a few miles off the coast. It doesn't do lakes in the mountains. It doesn't do all that. So what we decided is to say, okay, that there must be a limit at snow depths above which we could say, okay, reasonably that it should be frozen. That limit has been for basically from the beginning 27 centimeters. If you get more than 27 centimeters of snow, water is going to ice, and that's what you can basically see here. The 27 centimeter limit is where the lake is icing. We have had no feedback whatsoever of missing ice. Everybody says there's too much ice. We have done a lot more. I mean, now it's winter again. Over the last few weeks and months, we have done a lot more research and checked. And you can see the next screen. That's going to be Sim Update 15. We basically changed the limit at which we are going to ice the water. It's much higher. So you will see ice in whatever northern Canada, Antarctica in the summer for us. In areas where it looks good, it's logical, but you will not see, unless there's like maybe a 2-meter snowfall in that area, you will not see ice lakes in most areas anymore. And we're going to discuss in the second time with the data provider in order to get the much more fine resolution snow coverage, which would also contribute in improving this further. But Sim Update 15, we at least have the fix of the frozen lakes coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, we think Media Blue is the best data provider there is for worldwide coverage, but on this particular point, the data is maybe not what we exactly need. So we'll have a phone call with them probably next week or something to really go after the icing component.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Seb. Thank you, Jorg. Do have an update from Seb now about stability.
Yeah, Joe. So we have started now for quite a while a big chase on crashes stability in general. There has been a lot of crash fixes in Sim Update 13 and 14, and 15 again will bring another series of crash fixes. There's pretty much less and less crashes to fix, but we'll have another round of crash fixes in Sim Update 15.
Oh, it's so Seb. He's so undersized. Seb has been kicking ass on this. And we have, like seriously, we have the best stability we've ever had. Like when you look at the data, which we look at all the time, we are actually now quite stable. There's one thing that's nasty on Xbox Series S, so that's not as stable as we want it to be. But everything else is actually now looking pretty damn good. And Seb keeps finding the last vestiges of crash bugs. So it's awesome. Thank you, Seb. Mr. Understatement.
Of course. We are on to our live question portion, so feel free to post in chat. I'll start asking some I saw earlier. So in the last Dev Q&A, we talked about a few bugs where some bush trip achievements weren't working, as well as the decathlon bush trip or decathlon achievement. So the question is, will the previously discussed fix for decathlon and bush trip achievements be part of the new Sim update? The mention was that we were working on it for the next one. Is there any update on that, or things going well with that fix?
So we are currently working on that.
Yeah.
I don't have the proper status, but the goal is to have this fix for Sim Update 15.
Yeah.
I think Thomas said so. Thomas, the lead test lead at Asobo, we had a meeting yesterday. Monday, and I think he said yes, that it's coming. But
it's coming. It's planned, but because we don't have the fix yet, it's very well.
Let's be tested.
I might be a little bit understatement also. I don't want you to commit for something I'm not sure 100% sure of, but we are working on that. The goal is to have this fix for Sim Update 15.
Fantastic. Next question. Hello, Jorg, Seb, Martial. Big thanks to Microsoft and Asobo for the improvement for Xbox. As a developer, I keep hearing so much from Xbox users about how they do suffer from avionics issues, one of the key problems being the avionics going black. Are there any tests with Sim Update 15 helping to improve this? Many thanks. We're all from FS Reborn.
I can talk a little bit about this. I think in Sim Update 14, there's already been an improvement on this. So it's not completely fixed, but there's been an improvement. Another change we do on Sim Update 15 is for Xbox users. We changed some of the settings of the memory usage, and we hope for a further reduction in black screens. And basically what is, just to very simply explain the thing, on PC there is pretty much unlimited memory, right? If you want to allocate I actually managed to crash a computer by trying to allocate 64 gigs 2 weeks ago, and the computer shut off. But so you can go pretty far. On the console we have a fixed budget, and we need to work with it. And sometimes what happens is that, particularly during loadings into heavy airports, or in some situations where we have to load something while we unload something else. And I mean, the world is big, and so when we stream stuff in and unload other stuff at the same time, what happens is that sometimes we run out of memory. And so what we have is we have a sort of almost like an emergency procedure in a plane, right? We put some areas of the sim in sort of economy mode for a short time. And then while the stuff streams in and out and everything settles in, and then we turn it back on. And what happens is that the cockpits turn into sort of economy mode, so they switch off. Normally it's supposed to be happening during a loading, for example, so you don't even notice. And then they're supposed to switch back on. And what happens is that sometimes for what we suspect is maybe not a perfect setting of these memory thresholds, they basically turn on but don't turn back off. I mean, they turn off but don't turn back on. Until you maybe go back to the main menu or fly into an area where there's a lot more memory or something like this. And so this is something where we have been playing around with thresholds in Sim Update 16, and we hope for an improvement. Flighting will tell us how much of an improvement it is.
There's another thing to be said here. Like, so I think you probably know, but the aircraft developers don't have access to Microsoft Xbox dev kits. So they actually can't really test their planes on the target platform. And there is some work being done to make that work via some specific flighting thing. I don't think that's kicked off yet, but that will help too, right? Not just that it's not just a platform. People need to be able to test their own stuff. And we asked the people on Xbox that control who is an Xbox developer, because you have to be an official Xbox developer to get a dev kit. And I said, hey, we have like 100 plus companies making airplanes. Can they all become Xbox developers? And they just looked at me funny and said, no, we don't have the bandwidth to do that. So instead, we're going to do this flighting approach. But yeah, we fully understand that needs to get better. But we also need to empower the creators to test their own stuff. So that's in the works.
All right, some great questions I'm seeing now. What is the story behind the Done.io crash that pops up on PC?
Are you aware of that?
I am. Like, I think the SDK. I know even who's looking at this, at least in theory. So somebody at the show was looking at this.
So we know, but maybe we can go offline
it's
and
like
provide
anything.
a better.
There's a crash. Yeah, it's to be looked at.
I think it's a specific crash instance that they're investigating, but now there is a
it's
good
top 10
pop-up for it
crashes
now.
that we're tracking. So it's completely. We look at this all the time. What are the top 10 crashes? And then you see Seb's name behind a lot, and then other people's name behind them, and they get squished.
So remember when we did that presentation about how we are dealing with crashes? So we still have that kind of statistics, and we do know which crashes is the most has the most occurrency. Is that what you say? And so we'll deal with that list.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Next question: will it be possible for devs to add an option in Marketplace sometime for products to be upgraded from an older, obsolete version to the new version for a small fee?
So I know we talked about it. There's a big rework of the Marketplace for 2024 coming. I have to defer. Mabel would know. She was here, remember, 2 times ago or something. She runs the Marketplace all up. I'll ask her and get back to you. So Jayne, if we can just go put that down somewhere as a note, and we'll get back to folks.
Sounds good. Next question, Edson at Parallel 42 here. We recently received a world update that contained many changes under the hood at the core of the sim. Since these don't have test builds or flights, they did cause issues for our mod for Flow for VR users. Can there be a consideration to limit core sim updates to actual sim updates versus content updates?
That's what we do. But that's what we do with exceptions. So, and that's what you're referring to. If you meant World Update 16, that had some code. It had very little code. Some of them, I think, were the crash fixes from Seb. There were some things related to the Dune expansion, but it was very minor. And it was to the point where people said, should we publish a change list? And I think the changes had like 2 things on it. And I think we ended up saying, it just looks silly to put 2 lines of text somewhere and say, this is our update. So I think we probably didn't, but I hear you, Edson. We'll be careful. I'm surprised actually. So if we can get that detail, what exactly broke, that would be actually useful.
Great. I have a thread. I'll send it over. Here's another live question. Can we expect to see another expert series aircraft like the ATR in the future?
Definitely.
Definitely. Awesome.
Well, I just want to say these things
Yeah.
take a long time. I mean, so the bar for the expert series is pretty high. And I'll repeat it because it took a while to really crystallize even. We only want to do it if the manufacturer of the plane is with us, meaning they need to take an active interest into developing this plane and give all the information for the developer so they can do the best possible job. That was true for ATR. Hans and team are directly hooked in with the ATR folks. They tested in their testing facilities, our sim, and that's working. And my goal has always been to keep going, right? If it's a plane that's actively being developed, then we'll actively change the plane as the manufacturer develops it. So you saw that already. I think we released like 1 or 2 Highline interiors. Then there was some door, I think that ATR mentioned we needed to add, like an optional door. There will be other things like that. And so the manufacturers that give us full access are going to be the ones that we are focusing on. But yeah, we're planning more expert series ones, but I wouldn't say don't expect them every month or something. It's like I'm more thinking about like one a year. Seems like enough, and they don't take just 6 months to make either. They take a year or 2 to make. So there are several in development, but not imminent.
Yeah, and I guess the follow-up question here, do you collaborate with other developers besides Hans for expert series planes?
For sure.
Sure. Great. Okay, next question. Is there a possibility of having a selective safe mode that would allow users and devs to debug mod conflicts by selecting only the mods in question rather than having all or none cleanup of the community and marketplace folders?
Well, we are the plan was to have something like not to uninstall, but to remove things from being loaded, and it was creating some issues. So you can still do that by removing things from your community folder. The on-mon things, it's something we are still thinking about, but it's creating some issues. It's not an easy task.
Understood. Next question we have from Sergio. Can we expect any more improvements and fixes on helicopters?
Hi, Sergio.
Hi, Sergio.
There is a big chapter about helicopters a bit later. Surprise.
You will love this game, Serge.
Okay. Yeah, we will show that in a little bit. We'll continue with a few more live questions before we move on to the next section, but feel free to ask more live questions. We'll see if we can take some more a little bit later. One more I'll ask, will the long talked about flight model and ground effect improvements come to 2020 or will they be in 2024?
So we skipped that, Seb. This is the time to talk about the ground.
I think on the last Q&A I showed a video about improved ground collision simulation. So this is actually, I mean, we just finished this today with Francois, one of the test pilots. So I think we're going to go the path of not pushing it onto every plane and helicopter out there. It's going to be optional. So you will have to basically do, I think there's 5 parameters to add to an aircraft to benefit from the new system. I think a copy paste will work in 90% of the cases, so it's not very hard. We will enable it on the Cessna, which I've already shown in the Cabri. I will talk later about helicopters more in depth. And it really, on something on the Cessna, it feels a bit like if like previously we only simulated the suspension, and now we simulate the tire, which can basically flex a little bit, well, in any direction. And in the debug screen that displays the wheel physics, you can now actually, there's one of the slider which shows the flex. Even when it's only, oh my God, I mean, feet and inches are not a big, like even if you only go up to 0.05 feet, what is that, like half an inch? I don't know. It's a small. It already adds a lot to basically it allows the airframe to vibrate to live its life, and it completely changes the ground. I mean, how the plane feels on the ground, not just how it looks, but how it controls. So this is definitely still coming to Simulated 15. We will enable it on 2 aircraft, and maybe more as we go forward with testing or on an upcoming sim update. And plane makers are free to enable it on any aircraft. So still coming. I didn't show a new video because it pretty much looks the same than what I showed last time. So I mean, a little bit better, but it wasn't it wasn't worth a completely new video.
Awesome. Thank you, Seb. Next question. Is there a reason why a plane like the A320neo version 2 is being added to the base sim rather than a free download from the marketplace? Is there a difference in how content like that is handled?
Yeah, it's much more convenient to put it into the base SKU. There's no real other reason for it.
Okay. Convenience. Next question. Can we someday flag aircraft as favorites from the selection menu?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Good to know. All right. I think now we'll delve into some new features in Sim Update 15 since we've been teasing at it a little bit.
But we'll add another free session, right? Because I
Yeah.
see all the questions that are not being answered. And I mean, we should try. So let's do this and then come back to live questions.
Sure. All right. Let's talk about multi-rotor.
What?
Yeah. So helicopters and even more than multi-rotor. So there's been a lot of additions to helicopters in Sim Update 15. One of them being multi-rotor, but I will quickly go over everything else. I mean, maybe you can pause the video before.
Okay.
Or go back.
No video yet.
So before I go into multi-rotor, because that's a big one, we have, so first of all, the helicopters also benefit from the ground, new ground system. So for example, on the Cabri, we added, I think it's 200 of a foot flex onto the gear. And it's cool because now when the engine is idle on the ground, the cabin shakes. When you move the instruments, the helicopter will twist a little bit. I mean, it's really cool. Even if you when you land hard, it has this sort of, I mean, much more realistic. You basically feel the very slight flex of the gear of the Cabri. And while we were at it, we looked into gears for helicopters, a lot of improvements there. So helicopters can now have wheels, they can steer, they can brake, they can roll, which they couldn't do before. What else? We improved the tools to understand. We had a lot of questions about translational lift. Is it on off? Is there a table? And yeah, no, there is not anything of that. It's just a CFD which simulates airflow. And so we improved the tools to understand translational lift. Translational lift in the simulator can happen forward, but it can happen left, right, even when you fly backwards, because it happens when basically the rotor, when it blows air downwards, it sort of ends up creating a vortex, and the air basically is coming in faster because of the vortex. And basically the rotor, if you know a little bit of physics about power, if you want to accelerate a car that is already driving at 100 miles per hour, it costs you a lot more power than if you want to accelerate it by the same amount from zero. Basically, it costs more power to accelerate air that's already moving. When you go forward, fresh air is coming. It's all fresh. It's not been touched by anything. And so it costs less power. So that's basically why you benefit from moving forward. And on the Cabri, you will see that you can hover still 60% power. And if you go forward, you will go up. You don't need as much power, right? Basically to hover or to stay at the same altitude. And this is all a natural result of the CFD, which the air is blown. And in order to tweak that, you can't just say, oh, I want less, I want more. You have to either change the rotor aerodynamics or the cabin, the airframe, because the air is going to hit the airframe and blow around or whatever. So it's not that easy to tweak, right? And so that's why we added tools for this. And now to multi-rotor. So this has been also basically we in the sim you could only have for the moment one rotor like this and one rotor like this. That's so you can still only have two, right, with Simulate 15, but now they don't have to be like this. So here, for example, I did quickly a prototype of putting two rotors like this, and there's a whole bunch of new. So basically, you can take the second rotor and you can say, hey, it's not a tail rotor anymore, and then there's a whole bunch of new parameters because, well, you control it completely differently than a regular helicopter. For example, a helicopter which is like this, like the Cabri. If you want to yaw, well, you do more tail rotor, and it's gonna be like doing like this. On a helicopter like this one here, which has two rotors like this, if you want to yaw, there's a few different ways. You can do it like a drone. You spin one rotor faster than the other to create more drag, or you can just tilt the rotors asymmetrically. So there's basically ways to direct basically the input. There's three inputs, like the yoke and the rudder, and you can direct them to different axes on the rotors. So here you can see the CFD automatically expands to englobe the entire size. The helicopter with two rotors like this is still entirely flying only because of the fluid simulation CFD, and the ground effect is working, translational lift is working, everything is working like it should. And you don't have to do rotors like this, right? You have two rotors, you can do anything with them. You can do like this. So in this case, again, it's different. You can't spin, you can't yaw by tilting them. You have to here change the rotation speeds and do stuff like this. And you can even do, I think some helicopters are like this, right? Whatever. So you can do this too. You can do pretty much anything. The only thing we did not yet implement is you cannot move the rotor and you can't like spin them in real time, right? You have to, you can tilt them a little bit with the controls, but you can't, for example, like I think some aircraft are starting, it's a propeller and then it turns into a rotor or the other way around. Stuff like this, where it's like a complete change of axes. That not yet in Simulated 15, but anything else. I mean, you can even make up stuff. We support, and with this new direction of input into different results, you can do all the different types of helicopters now.
Mm-hmm. And can you explain why it's an invisible helicopter right now for chat asking?
Because it's a prototype.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I think some people said it, like Miltech's working on the Chinook, right? Cool, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hopefully it's useful for them. But we get plenty of feedback. It's always useful from helicopter developers and search. And I think this is just a result of that, and it's great that Seb had time.
Yeah, so we are not making one of these right now. We just made the tech. It supports all of that, and playmakers can use it to make a more realistic version of these helicopters.
Mm-hmm. There is a question. I don't know if you've answered it in your talk here, but Gottfriend said, can multi-rotor flight dynamics be used for eVTOL mechanics, or is it strictly designed for piston turbine engines?
I mean, you can only have two, so VTOLs usually have a lot more of these.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's right now. In the future, we may expand for a lot more of these.
Mm-hmm.
And on the engine side, I don't know if it has to be piston or turbine. I'm not completely sure. Also, this does all the clutching and whatever. If you have two engines, one engine, like this one had one engine, but you can have two engines and two. It does the whatever transmission work as it should as well.
Yeah. In the rest of their sentence here, they said, would love to see this added to electrical engines so that custom solutions are not necessary. And then what is the maximum multi-rotors allowed?
They want everything.
It's exciting.
So right now we can have, I think it's 16 engines, 16 propellers. But propellers don't have as much complexity, and two rotors. Rotors are a lot more expensive than propellers, and we may push the limit up in the future to more. That's right now. So the thing we did already in the past is we made this dynamic, so you don't have to have you don't pay for the memory or performance of 16 propellers, even though you only use 2. That's something we already did when we moved the number of propellers up. And this is just the next step, right? And this was already a lot of work and a lot of testing and playing around. We had to do all the prototypes of all the different types of helicopters, make sure it works. And yeah, we will go further next time.
There's a
Yeah.
good question here, Seb, about the ornithopter.
Yeah. Do these dynamics also work on the ornithopter next month? Ornithopter next month. Yeah, it's thopter. But yes.
So the ornithopter, I don't know how much we can already say about this, Jorg, but
It's super fun. I mean, this is a
Yes.
test stream, right? So
I know how it was made, but do you want me to comment a little bit? But it's a completely new flight model. It's not rotating blades. It's like a how do you call these things? It's like this insect which flies on the water.
yeah,
Dragonflies.
Like a
Dragonfly.
dragonfly.
So the water is doing more like a wavy thing. So it has its completely own from scratch flight model.
Mhm.
It's fantasy, but man, the team,
Yes, it's fantasy.
the team went deep on this to make it
That's
simmy.
fun. Yeah.
It's not just some arcade thing. So yeah.
Okay. Just on the topic of turbines, is there any changes to the turbine modeling to produce more realistic results for N1 and EGT? Some developers have resorted to external engine models because of this.
I heard about this. I think it's being investigated. I wouldn't say it's done, but I heard definitely discussions about this.
That's right.
Okay. All right, we are going to move on to our next section, another new feature for Sim Update 15. Talk about xCloud.
Yeah. I was debating if I should put this here because I'm not sure how many of you play Flight Sim on xCloud, but I can tell you that in any given month, it's between 250,000 and 500,000 people do exactly that.
Mhm.
And right this moment, the only way that you can play it, so you know what xCloud is, but it basically streams to pretty much whatever endpoint. You can stream it to your old laptop if you want, or an iPad if you so want, or an Android phone if you so want. So it all works. It's quite great, but the only way it works right now is that you have to have sort of an Xbox controller type thing. So I've been working on this, and here's the next slide. So this is now supporting touch and gyro. And we've had it for a while. Actually, we tried to wait, to be fully transparent. We tried to wait for mouse keyboards to also be supported, but it's a platform feature. So we've been waiting, and it's not quite done yet. So we decided we're going to go put this out, and because, as I said, sometimes 500,000 people play on xCloud, and they deserve the best possible thing we can do. So next slide shows you just a little bit what that actually looks like. Well, this is you can actually set it, and then the next slide shows you the interface. And it's cool. Like we've obviously tested it a lot, and it's very controllable even on the phone. Like I sometimes play on my iPhone, whatever this is, 13, I think, and it's better. It's much better than what was before. So that's coming. Sim Update 15 is finally here.
Fantastic. And the next new feature, G3X Touch. Built from the ground up. So let's get into it.
Da da da.
Yeah.
Welcome back,
yeah, so
Dominic.
people yeah. So people have been asking what Working Title has been doing since AU2. And yeah, there's now 24 of us, and some of those have been hard at work to rework an instrument that was highly demanded or was named pretty often when people were asking about what we were doing. So yeah, we finally got to rework that instrument using the avionics framework, and the team really put in a ton of work into reproducing the styling, layout, the symbology of the real unit. So it's really hard to tell apart from the real thing if you just see screenshots of it. And I think the G3X Touch is a little bit of a special unit, and on its own, it can only do internal VFR point-to-point, and direct to flight planning. And otherwise, if you want to fly full IFR flight plans, it needs to be coupled with a external navigator, so like a GNS or a GTN. So that is what makes it a little bit special. But we got support for all of that. Otherwise, you can control all of the radios, of course, the common nav radios, the transponders on the touchscreen. So it's super convenient. And also because it's used a lot in experimental and light aircraft, and you're gonna be maybe out in the wild doing your bush trips and stuff, you really want to. It's nice that there's easy access to data like for airports and nav aids. So you can look up airport frequencies, runway data, which we'll see later, and other nav aids. And of course, weather, because in a small aircraft like that, when you get into bad weather, that's going to be interesting. Yeah, and maybe one important thing is, so this instrument is super customizable. It also in the real world, so it offers a lot of options, so you can make it show the information you want, and also especially plane developers, they can really customize it to what the plane they're building, what the real thing would look like. So one nice feature of the G3X is that there's not really a dedicated PFD and MFD. It's just a touch screen, and you can configure it to whatever information you want to show, and that can be the usual primary flight display information. But it can also be like split to show PFD and MFD information. And yeah, and then you see all the other information on top with the frequencies, some flight data, and to the left, the engine indication systems. And yeah, as I said, it's highly customizable, so you can really make it show the information that is useful to you. So you can turn on off the synthetic vision flight path marker, configure the wind display, HSI orientation, and the inset displays, which you can see at the bottom left, for example, with the map. And yeah, many other things. There's so much there. Yeah, and as I said earlier, you can look up airports and nav aids, and I really like this runway view where you can then also see the wind on a specific runway, which really is super useful for when you're in planes like that. And then you can see the weather information, the METAR. Right, and as we said, when you're not using a external navigator like a GNS or a GTN, then the instrument is able to do internal VFR flight planning and with direct use, and it's all a little bit special on that instrument. So I think it's gonna be fun to use for sure, and different than other avionics. Yeah, and otherwise you can see the engine indication system, which of course is fully customizable for different planes. And there's also a MFD page with more information about the temperatures. There's a lean assist system, fuel calculation system, which I think is optional for various types of planes. And yeah, so we integrated it now into the VL3, the XCUP, and the NXCUP that come with the sim. So it will be integrated in those planes in Sim Update 15. And we know there's a lot of like third-party planes out there that would like to use that system. So I hope it will get adopted a lot. And it's a boost to the category of like these more bush trip-like planes. And I think that's going to be really fun.
Absolutely, and there's a few great comments I just want to read in chat here. First from Got Friends, they say this is absolutely huge. So many aircraft use this system. We've been waiting to see it if it was ever tackled. So awesome work, they say. Parallel 42 says wonderful to see the G3X get love. We had and hoped and held on to that hope.
Finally.
Great to see it come to fruition. Our kit box just got a great bump. So thanks from those teams, and I'm sure other third-party developers will be really excited
Just
to
a
use
quick
this.
shout out to our pilot testers and QA, especially Brad, Brian, and John. They had access to a plane with the G3X, and they went out numerous times answering our questions, getting resources. So we really couldn't have done it without that support. So thank you very much.
That is awesome. What a cool job. You get to go out and hang out with the plane
Yeah.
while you get to do this.
Yeah,
That's
but,
cool.
like, that's nice for sure.
All right. We did want to talk now a little bit about the World Hub. One of the big questions I got was, how is the World Hub doing? How are the users feeling? How's the feedback? Jorg?
Great. So it's been, I made some slides. So we're just
You
gonna look
did?
at them.
Here we go.
So here's the World Hub. If you haven't seen it, it rolled out, I think, January 18th, if I remember this right. And we have a lot of applications, frankly, many more than we thought. 1,208 as of this morning when I wrote the slide. So obviously we launched on the 18th. We sent out 150 invitations. We were conservative. We didn't want to overwhelm our support team. 70% of the people that had the invitations actually now signed in on the website. 40 revised airports have already been submitted for review, and the moderation team have already approved more than half. And then just yesterday, we sent out the next 300. So the support was actually not as heavy as we thought. So we sent out the next 300 yesterday. So 450 people now have access. And there was a question about process. It was sort of like about should people bundle submissions? And I think the answer is that the one here.
That is a question here. I can read this one if you want to answer it.
Yep.
Yeah. So we did have a question. Would you prefer that people submit small incremental changes to the World Hub, or would you rather they submit fully fixed airports containing dozens of changes in one submission? One example I'm thinking of is, how would you handle a situation where somebody submits 20 changes to a single airport and you agree with 19 changes and want to reject one change? Can the World Hub absorb those 19 good changes, or do you have to reject the entire submission and send the whole thing back?
So basically, I mean, this is a community tool, we want to be flexible. So basically, just do what you think makes sense for you, right? If you have 20 submissions and 19 are good, our current plan is that we'll adopt the last one that we didn't quite like, and then and basically let it through as a submission of 20. But just know that if you are a single person, you send 20 different things in. That's also a lot of work to look every single thing, single file. So just do what makes human sense, and just know that there's some people on the other side that need to verify this before we can put it in the base sim.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very flexible. I mean, it's for us, right? Let's just work together.
Mm-hmm. And how is feedback going from what you're seeing on the dev support forums?
Good. I mean, I think there's some stuff that I've seen where people are talking about basically the ground texture, for lack of a better term. What we can't do, because it lives on our servers, we can't just take willy-nilly somebody's personal, somebody's personal ortho or something, because we don't know where the origin is. So that is something that has to be done on our side. And I had an idea the other day. I can tell you what the idea is. Basically, I mean, the nice thing about airports, they all have perimeters, right? So if we just take the airport perimeter, can we get that latest aerial masked in? It's kind of the same idea that we had for the shallow water. So I'll look into this if this is possible, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think you know this, like when we get new aerials, maybe this is more of a bigger point. Do we have the exact same aerials that are on Bing all the time? No, actually we don't. Why? Because we have to do a bunch of work after that. We have to do color correction, tree detection, building detection, a whole bunch of other things. So that's why we have world updates, really, to make that more organized, and we can actually go test it. But in the case of airports, I think it's possible that we just get, like, for example, Seattle or something. We had I think 2 years ago, we had a new terminal. I don't think this is currently in Flight Sim. I don't think so. But we could theoretically update this if we just plot in the airport itself. So anyways, this was triggered by the feedback, by the way. So thank you for that. And we'll look into it.
Yeah. And that is one of the questions. Will the guidelines for the World Hub be reviewed so we can update airports based on current charts and reality instead of outdated aerials, not asking to update aerials,
Right.
but to correct taxiways
That's
and runways?
exactly that.
Yeah.
That's exactly that.
Okay.
And there's several people looking into this right now. And
Okay.
I'll talk to the Bing guys about the aerials themselves.
Yeah. Great question is, when those airports are accepted, how do the changes go through? Are they server side? Can you explain the process of how they get into the sim from a user side of it?
I think the idea is that we do it alongside the Eric update once a month.
Mhm.
Yes. So far it's not server side. It has to be integrating to a database, which is downloaded in the sim.
Mhm. And will we be providing a list to everyone which airports will be updated?
You will, I think.
Mhm. Awesome. And I think the other big piece of feedback here in chat, someone's asking, will we review being able to add default sim objects into the World Hub Alpha?
I mean, we're taking it one step at a time, right? I mean, so let's get this, let's get our sea legs going underneath us, right? That I'm already happy how it's going. 150 people are participating. You know, the first data is making it through to the sim. That's the whole point of it.
Mhm.
And if that works, I mean, this is also for features where we got some feature requests and things. The team is obviously looking at all this, and we will try.
Yeah.
But it's a full parallel development effort to the main sim, right? In some ways. So it's, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're excited. I think people are excited. So let's go. I always say, let's build the world together. It was like this idea, right? And this is the first step, build the airports together.
Sure. And looking forward to those 300 individuals who were added yesterday to get your added feedback and submissions. All right, so we are now looking at the roadmap again, Jorg.
Yeah, I mean, I filled in the picture. Like, so doing it, not that exciting. Dune is coming soon. I said I don't put Flight Simulator 24 up here just because we're not prepared to announce a date or anything like this yet. But it's fair to say it's later this year. It's not coming in March if you were speculating, for example. So we will use the time we have to make it great.
Really. And we'll go into a few more live questions, but before that, we'll do an update here on the Antonov AN225.
Yeah, so that was super cool. Like, so we had a hole in the marketplace. Sort of, there's this main ad thing that you can do in the marketplace, and Mabel had the idea to put the Antonov 225 in there, and that was really great because we have this agreement with Antonov that all, as we said, all the funds, anything you put into the Antonov goes to Antonov to either rebuild an Antonov 225, like a new one, or preserve the memory. So I think Antonov hasn't really exactly told me exactly how it's going, but the good news is people have really enjoyed it, and we are getting really close to 100,000 units that people have downloaded, and we'll give you a full update. Maybe I'll ask Julie to come, who runs our business team, and we'll break it down for you exactly how much in funding we could send to Antonov, which I think is just a great cause. And I wanted to make everybody aware that deal we have ends February 26th. So if you want to do something good in the real world and try to get some money to Antonov, then this is a good time to get the Antonov.
Awesome. Thank you, Jorg. All right, we still have a few minutes, so let's go back and answer some of the live questions that we have. All right, I have a couple queued up here already that I will ask. Someone said, thanks a lot for the stream. Will the very red colors during sunrise and sunset in cloudy weather be looked at or addressed?
It's Monsieur Wloch, I think.
I think that's what happened with Simulate 14. I don't understand the question.
I think there's some feedback that there's a thread that goes into like, hey, it's good, but there's some other things. So I think the team has been looking into this. That's tied into. We just had a conversation about this on Monday, so I think people are looking into the thread.
Yep. Okay, will Stockholm photogrammetry be in a future city update?
Yes, I know. So we have it, and it's in editing, and yeah, it's interesting. So basically, it missed the Nordics update, as you know, and then the city updates are actually kind of themed. So it's currently not fitting super duper well. I have to think about this. So it's definitely coming this year. That much is a certainty. But which next city update it's in is kind of up for debate, I think. I'll look into it.
Yeah. Probably a question for Jorg. Will the Flight Sim team be attending FS Weekend in March?
We're going to attend next year. I really wanted to come. I don't know. I was always hoping that Sepp Martial would join me. It's in Holland, by the way, for what it's worth. But I talked to Niels. It looks like a great event. I've never been, and none of us, I think, have ever been. And I want to go really badly, but we are so busy that it was just not. I initially said, "Yeah, Niels, we're coming," and then I had to back out and say, "We're coming in 2025." So that's the plan.
Look forward to that. All right. Is there any status update on the ground texture tiles popping, changing low to the ground? This was previously discussed in the last Dev Q&A stream.
Yeah, I believe that is coming with Sim Update 15. Martial, do you know? It's Adrian's clear cache thing.
I don't know what is the status of that.
I think the answer is yes, because we missed it last time. The fix was known. It didn't make some deadline. So, but I think this time it's.
Yeah.
I'll push. I really, trust me. I care about the world looks good, so we'll push on it.
Ooh. Are you coming to Aero in Friedrichshafen?
God, Friedrichshafen.
Yes.
Friedrichshafen. Maybe. So that one. So they asked for 4 years or 5 years now that we show up, and we never did. It's in Germany, Seb. Bodensee. Oh yeah, Lake Constance. So I think the answer, I want to go. We'll see.
Sounds great. What about Brazil World Update? Any status on that?
Here's the Jorg button. So I just want you to. So it's not like when people say, "Oh, you guys are ignoring South America, Africa." I mean, it hurts a little, right? Because I'm looking at the globe all the time, so I'm very aware what countries there are, right? And the issue is, photogrammetry gets made by airplanes with very special equipment. Like there's this $1 million camera, literally, that hangs from underneath, and you have to hire the right flyer that knows what they're doing, yada 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 yada. And so we did hire someone to go to Brazil. And I write emails about this probably twice a week right now, saying, has the camera arrived? Check. Has the camera been installed? 1 week goes by. Check. Is the plane in the air? Oh, we're missing a cable. Okay. So that is where it's at. Like this is a first time ever that this has been done with our partner company Vexel, and we are trying hard. The plan is in place. Brazil is important, so is Poland. It's not like we're not paying attention. So it's coming. I can't guarantee you when, because sometimes with things like Stockholm or, I mean, for example, the city of Bratislava, right? We scanned it. We flew. Then there was weather problems, and then it was sitting in military review, and it's been sitting there happily for 8 months, which is why it didn't launch with World Update Eastern Europe, right, or Central Eastern Europe. So to some degree, we don't control all this, but just rest assured, we're doing really a lot to bring the world to you, all of the world, not just some random North America, Europe things. So it just takes time. We're inventing things. We're setting up companies to do these things.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Thank you for that update. Hope the flying goes well down there.
Exactly.
All right, next question. Earlier we heard about possibly getting 3D water with depth and physics. Is there any information we can get about this? Takers?
I mean, I don't think we ever said this is coming to 2020. I think this is pretty big tech effort. So I don't know if you want to say something here.
No, nothing planned in the very close future on 2020.
No. All right, sounds good. Next question. We'll just take, let's see, we're a little over. We'll take a couple more. Next question we have here are, there is a bug where in cloud density, with cloud density, and it's at 0 in live weather, and I'm wondering if you've made any progress on looking into it.
I don't know, but we can look.
It wasn't at the top of the list. I sometimes see it pop up, but we go from the top down, right? From the if you look at the feedback snapshot, which we do every week, we go top down. So that's why you saw when Seb was talking about the ATC, couldn't hear the ATC anymore. It was number 3 or something. So yep, that is what we prioritize.
I have been seeing some VR questions. Would anyone like to go over there's any specific VR fixes or changes to make the community aware of for the future?
So we are still using VR as a platform here. The difficulty with VR is that you've got plenty of different configurations, but every time we are releasing a new some new assets or same for me on
Nice.
PC at home. I'm always using a Flight Sim with my VR headsets, so it's super difficult to be to make every plane working with every PC and every headsets. But it's what we are trying to do here. If you go to the studio, you would see plenty of headsets on different PCs.
Mhm.
And we know we're not perfect. What I can tell you is that for VR user with Jayne, you will have hell of an experience. It's spectacular.
Mhm.
So yes, we
And-
still have
and-
some good things to bring with VR on Flight
And
Sim.
the performance improvements coming with Simulated 15
Yes.
are always good to take in VR.
Great. Good to know.
Somebody said earlier, like I saw it just blink, like scroll by, about the Microsoft change to mixed reality and how it affects us.
Mhm.
I don't think it affects us. Nope. So don't worry about it.
Good to know. Okay.
Not a thing.
Thank you. Scrolling back here, I did see a question. Do world updates, which are currently out in 2020, will those all apply to 2024 as well?
It's undecided. So so there's a piece of feedback that says I should get rid of Roman numerals and go, American numbers. I'm still thinking about it, but it's anyway. So I read that, and then on the, do we integrate them straight into the 2024 base map, or should they stay downloadable in the marketplace? It's just not. I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Great.
But will the data be available? One way or another, it will be for sure. But it's exactly how we serve it up is not quite clear.
Yep. All right, we are a little past the time. Before I close out, though, if there's any questions you saw real quick that any of you all want to answer before I move on here to our final
Well,
slide.
I mean, I'm hoping that people are it always breaks my heart when somebody says, "You're not answering my question." We are trying. Like, I hope you see
Definitely.
that. So
Definitely.
de-icing trucks certainly being looked at for, but most likely for 2024. Differentiated voices, all that stuff. I mean, we're looking at a lot of things. Maybe that's what we should say. CFD visible for the ornithopter, Seb? I think the answer is probably yes, right? No.
Not sure.
No, it's a completely different flight model for the, so I don't think it uses neither CFD neither. It's almost from scratch, because it's the flight model in 2020 is using I would say contemporary aerodynamics. We don't have any materials that are futuristic like in the stuff you need for the ornithopter. So we had to develop a new flight model that can basically deal with the constraints and the airflow that's in there. So it's you will not see. It's very realistic. It feels. It has a very physically based math. Matches what is happening in the movie, but it's pretty extreme. I mean, I don't think humanity is ready to build this today, right?
Yes. So it's hard to be realistic when it's not doable in the real world. But Andre, who was in charge, he tried to do something that could feel realistic between an helicopter and a plane. So it was pretty complicated to do, but the result is brilliant, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, I will end it on one question.
I want to say a
go
couple
ahead.
more things. Like I
Go
saw
ahead.
some good things. The thing with the wife, so I have that same issue, and I think the job is to make her become a simmer. And
I was going to
there's
say
all
that
kinds
too.
of ways to get there. Like, so I think my wife will go engage with kind of the things we were planning for in 2024, like fly around in a balloon over Africa. I think that's more her jam, right? So that's why we are sort of expanding a little bit what the canvas is, because ultimately I think a lot of people want to fly, and I know a fair number of people that are flat out scared when they look at the country and they're like, what the hell is all this? So that is what we're trying to do. On the ATR side, so I would just say a couple of things because it's near and dear to my heart. ATR themselves tells us that it's great. Okay, I take that as so the head of training at ATR told us that he wants to put it in their training facility. So that tells me something. And then there is sometimes people confuse what I think the community has always framed as Jorg, blanking, study level. We have limitations what is allowed as far as failures, and that will always be so until the manufacturer tells us that we are allowed to have failures, because it's their aircraft. If they say we can't have something, then we can't do it. And then as far as the open topics, Hans and his partners are working on another update that is dealing with the remaining topics that have been brought up. And by the way, that's been working great. Like the community team at Asobo collected all the feedback, hundreds of lines. Hans went through all the feedback, double checked everything. This was the first tranche of fixes, and then there's another one planned for May. And we will, after that, continue to upgrade the ATR. So don't worry about it. We are going to we're not going to take our eye off that plane and somehow not support it. That is not what's going to happen. Okay, just want to say that. I think Hans did well, trying to protect the man a little,
You did awesome. All right. So thank you, everyone who has joined in for this live session, and for anyone who's watching this later on YouTube. Appreciate everyone caring about the sim and listening in. Jorg, any final thoughts before we head out here?
Yeah. I obviously it's the first time we talked since the beginning of the year. I think 2024 is going to be amazing. I think this could quite possibly be the best year in flight simulation ever. And not just because Flight Sim 2024 is launching later this year, but also all the improvements we're making to 2020. And then you look at the community, and I just want to get a shout out to the community. Holy shit, are there awesome add-ons coming out? And not just a few, a ton, all over the place. Innovative things, totally new things that have never been done, great airports, great airplanes. So I think the hobby is really thriving, and that more than anything makes me super happy.
Yeah. Very true.
Thank you. So thank you.
Seb?
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Seb. And Marcel?
Yeah, I think we are missing two tiles here. The first one would be to Dominique. So thank you, Dominique. And
thank you, Dominique, the working title.
Yeah, it's a bit sad that he's
Yes.
not with. Thank you, Dominique.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
thank you.
Dominic.
Yeah.
You too.
And maybe the last tile which is missing would be for you, Jayne.
Yeah.
Because it's
I agree.
Right, yes.
Love how you do this, Jayne.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, I love doing these, and I'm glad that the community gets something out of them. We will post this as soon as possible on our YouTube, so everyone can look back and rewatch certain sections. I'm sure many people might go back to that Roto section, and maybe some stuff from Working Title, really cool things to look at. So appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great month. We'll be back at the beginning of March, I believe, before Sim Update 15 comes out, to talk a little bit more with you and answer more questions. So until then, have a fantastic month in February, and we will see you later. All right. Bye, everyone.
It's really fun. Hey. All right. Bye, y'all.